Now to the rise in attacks against Asian Americans across the country. Hate crimes against Asian Americans in major U.S. cities surged by nearly 150% in 2020.
We are here in Manhattan's historic New York City Chinatown. I was a class president at SUNY College of Optometry. We grew up in DC Chinatown. I spent a lot of time here in New York City Chinatown getting to know the neighborhood, the people, and supporting the businesses. Now I would like to introduce another class president, one of my students, Julie Song.
Hi, my name is Julie. I'm a third-year optometry student at SUNY, and I'm actually from Tempe, Arizona. My parents originally immigrated here from China and to the University of Wisconsin-Madison to do their master's program, in which I was born there. I've largely spent most of my childhood in Tempe, Arizona, where I didn't always necessarily feel like I fit in, either with the Asian Americans or with any of my other classmates who were from other heritages. And I ended up graduating from the University of Arizona, and I'm a current class president at SUNY.
Our next SUNY Optometry student, I'm proud to introduce one of my favorite students. She's a Vietnamese American, Emma Trinh Hoang.
Hi, my name is Emma. I am born and raised in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. When I was 9 years old, I immigrated here with my parents. We first went to Seattle, Washington. Getting used to life here was definitely different, learning the language, the English language, being placed in ESL, being outcasted in a way in my elementary and middle school. By the time I got to high school, I kind of picked it up with my English and I was able to make a lot of friends. So I definitely say it wasn't an easy road, but I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be in New York and a part of SUNY Optometry, and the other Asian American students that I've met here have also made me feel very at home. So I'm glad to be here.
Next, I would like to introduce another one of my favorite students, Andrew Kageyama. His father was an optometrist. He's a Japanese American. I've learned a lot about the Japanese internment camps from him. Being Toisan and Asian, I know a lot about that. You know, I was in Washington, D.C. during Martin Luther King and all the changes with Asian Americans. So I know, based on the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, this violence against Asians, although accentuated now by COVID-19, has been around for centuries. He's taught me a lot about this. We also bond. He's a big Dodger fan, big baseball sports fan. So as people know, I run the communication for Hoya Hoop Club at Georgetown. So my friends, Coach Patrick Ewing, the New York Knicks legend, Dikembe Mutombo, son of the Congo, Allen Iverson, Junkyard Dog, Jerome Williams. This one's for you, but Andrew Kageyama.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kageyama. I'm a proud UCLA alumni and also a fourth generation or Yonsei Japanese American. My great-grandparents immigrated from Japan to Los Angeles, California, where my grandparents and my dad grew up in the West LA community. During World War II, my family was heavily affected by the Japanese American internment camp. Both my grandparents actually met at the Manzanar internment camp in California back in the 40s. And during that time, Japanese Americans were very alienated, even though the Nisei generation, where they are American citizens, they were really treated as they were in this in-between where they were citizens, but they were really seen as enemy by the United States, which led to the incarceration. And so during the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw a lot of similarities of what happened back then. And anti-Asian hate has really resurfaced with a lot of the blame being pointed towards Asian Americans for what's happened to this country, and this is nothing new. My grandparents faced a lot of anti-Japanese American hate growing up, and now we're seeing a lot of that with a lot of the anti-Asian hate going on today.
As I have mentioned, as a Jesuit-educated person at Georgetown University and Georgetown Prep, Fathers Healy, O'Donovan, President Joy have had a big effect on my life. We live the life of women and men for others, so it's my hope to promote Asians for others, Asian optometry for the health and eye care of others. So as we look to this thought, I really think it's integral that clinical optometrists really lead the way during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I would really like for Asian optometrists to lead the way also during this AAPI month. During my time at SUNY Optometry, I was the only Asian optometrist in my class. There were very few in the building. Now they make up arguably a majority. So when I look at the safety of my students, I run the 4th year clinical externships. What has really affected me during the pandemic is the safety of my students and patients. So I am really looking in my Start societies. I'm starting a National Technology Society next month, where I'm really hoping we will use technology to deliver better care, better outcomes for patients. Maybe not do things traditionally, maybe use telehealth, integrate other things to better health care, and new drug delivery systems. So I'm really looking for innovative ways to make a change and make something positive out of the pandemic. So let's go through our optometry students and see what significant stories have affected them during COVID-19. So Julie, why don't you take it away?
I think, of course, a lot of our Asian American students at SUNY have all been affected in various ways. I think as a member of student leadership and as my role in class president, I've been most concerned. I think, of course, we're always thinking about putting our patients first, but I'm really concerned about my classmates and the other students at school and whether or not they feel safe to come in to be educated on how to care for their patients, and traveling to school from farther areas in Queens, Brooklyn, Long Island, and Westchester, and what their commutes have been like to be able to come in. I know not everyone is fortunate enough to either be able to afford to drive into school or elect for alternate modes of transportation, but I know that there has been an increase in anxiety, and I'm really concerned about the mental health of our classmates and the people around us. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think if we want to be able to give premier care for our patients, we have to also think about ourselves and whether or not we're comfortable to be able to come into school and come into the clinic and be able to be on our A game to be able to offer care to our patients. I think personally, on the whole, I actually live pretty close to the Manhattan's Chinatown, and I think even just looking around me, recognize a level of anxiety and fear that I hadn't noticed before in our Asian American communities. I think even coming outside of school, I remember one day I was screamed at outside of the New York Public Library, "Hey Chinese girl, I'm watching you. You better be afraid." And I think that I never considered myself as someone who would undergo this kind of fear, and I think we're lucky to have a community here in New York City to support each other, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that at SUNY more and more as time has gone on to support our students and our classmates.
Next, let's go back to Emma Trinh Hoang, another one of my favorite students. I always tell her she has a lot of swag to her, so if you really get to know her, she introduced me to some Vietnamese rolls here that we had before, and I do think, Emma, you have a lot of swag, so let's tell us your story.
I normally look a little more swaggy than this. So I guess how COVID-19 has affected me in terms of being a student clinician is every time I come into the clinic, I try to just be more aware of the patient demographics that are coming in for the day, recognizing that specifically in this time where AAPI hate is so strong, for our Asian patients, how they are getting to campus and maybe what concerns and fears they may have in their transportation and how that may affect their ability to even show up to their appointment. And then you add another layer to that. Now you consider, okay, this is an AAPI woman, and there's a lot of also female and women hate going on, and then you add another layer to that of COVID. So this is now an AAPI woman who is above a certain age that categorizes her as elderly, and there's also a lot of discrimination and hate going on against that right now as well. So all of those things combined, it has taught me to be more empathetic to those patients, recognizing that if they're late or if they don't show up, there may be very personal reasons to that, and also tailoring my care to make sure that they can get everything done in one visit to limit, the frequency in which they have to keep coming back to our clinic, because just recognizing that may be a problem for a lot of people right now. So that's the thing that during COVID-19 and AAPI hate that I've learned the most.
Thank you, Emma. I think Julie and Emma really exemplify what I try to live by: women and men for others. The Jesuits took 500 years to change that, but women come first. And I think the empathy that you show for patients and care and your fellow students is really exemplary. Now, I also want to emphasize I've been working with Georgetown and the NIH really to look at data, because I think in optometry and medicine, a lot of people assume, well, there are a lot of Asian optometry students and a lot of Asian medical students, there is no problem. But when you look at faculty, leadership, boards, people that are represented, we are often forgotten. So we need to partner every group, the African American, Latino, the LGBT, the female genders, all these groups have different stories, and we need to look at them with empathy and collaborate with them. And now, male optometrists are becoming more rare, especially male optometry students, so I'm hoping Andrew will help lead the way to having a male Asian. So let's hear Andrew's story.
So during the pandemic, our class, we began our patient care responsibilities, and I remember one specific interaction that I had with a patient was actually a patient who was not a native English speaker. And through the pandemic, it's helped me become more aware of the disparities for patients that may not have access, or they rely on a family member to help translate to their doctors what their needs are. And it really, during the pandemic, I became more aware of that, and it helped me understand what may be affecting their motivation to seek care. And it also, when I experienced working with this patient specifically, it was very disheartening to me not being able to really connect with them and really show that my compassion towards them, and really understand and really get to what their needs are when they came into clinic. And relying on a family member, or also using translation services, I just felt very disconnected from this patient. And during the pandemic, it really helped me feel a little bit more compassion for these patients who rely on these to get what they need to get taken care of, especially for their eye care.
I'd like to really take this opportunity to say we have a small window of time to collaborate with others, that while people will listen to us, Asians have tended to be quiet and more compliant. We need to speak out, and we have a short window of time to strike while the iron is hot, collaborating with other people. So maybe each one of you will just give 10 seconds on how we can collaborate with others. We have a short window of time.
I think one of the biggest positive things that have come out of everything that's happened in this last year is an increase in the number of young people and also Asian Americans who are now speaking up and speaking out against the AAPI hate and just against racism in general. And I think that taking advantage of, just like what Dr. Wong was saying, the current movement, and really utilizing the tools that we know best, such as social media and the technology out there, to be able to reach out to people who maybe we wouldn't have been able to have a conversation with about this in the first place. And so I think that it's a positive look for the future generations to come, and I think it's a really great thing that we have the technology out there to reach out to others.
Definitely, I think just education, educating ourselves, educating the people around us, educating and having deep, meaningful conversations with even our patients. I think that's the best way for us to collaborate right now, and we need to for sure keep going on that.
I think a lot of it comes down to not just seeing each other's communities as separate, but we're one community and we need to stand with each other. It's not just a Japanese American community and a Chinese American community, or a Vietnamese American community, or even the Black American community. We need to stand amongst, between these communities. We need to stand with each other and support each other and help bring awareness to the racism that is alive in this country, and really get to the bottom of it and get to the problem.
Thank you, Andrew, and I thank you, Emma, and I thank you, Julie, and I thank SUNY Optometry and Eyewitness News TV, Tom Pace. I do want to say that we got to get out of this rain soon, but I just want to finish and say this is an important issue. Asian American Pacific Islander Month. I believe in future preferences, that although this is very difficult and we are all suffering today, that tomorrow will be better than today, and that we all have a moral and ethical responsibility to make the world a better place. So, Asians for others. Thank you, Eyewitness News TV. Asians for others, and we got to get out of the rain, so have a great day.